I certainly miss you. I hope that you miss me. If this is your first time here, thank you for joining us. Today we are with my Curate Bestie, Wendy. Hey, Wendy.
Hi.
Wendy Daniels is a super phenomenal Black woman in construction, but she's a developer. And so not a lot of us know what that means, but hopefully we'll explore some of that today. I know some of y'all are probably confused as to why Wendy got these cards in her hand. She wrote her answers to my questions on the cards. I'm kidding. Wendy is going to interview me today, and we'll get into a little bit of like how we got to this place where you have put me in the hot seat. But before we get there, we're going to start with an icebreaker.
Okay.
You ready?
Yes.
Okay. So this wasn't always the icebreaker, Wendy. What happened was I was reading a book last night that I had read already. I was just going back and rereading it, and I saw this question in there, and I was like, ooh, I'm going to ask this to Wendy. So you ready?
I am ready.
Okay. So of all the things that you care about, what must be given up to survive in order to thrive moving forward?
That's good. So I am going through an interesting journey right now, which is why that's really profound to me, because I feel like I just understood it, I would say, within the last 30 days. So I think that your ego is something you have to give up.
Okay.
And I think part of it is sometimes you can be locked in on what you think you want to do, who you are, what you want to become. And if you can get quiet, you can understand what part of that is your ego, right?
Good.
And what part of that is real. So I've been fighting career-wise. Not fighting. I think I thought I was clear this time last year in terms of what I wanted to do professionally, where I was trying to go. And I had an aha moment at the end of the year that was like, oh, wow, I think some of that was your ego. That really wasn't because that's what you really, truly thought you wanted to do. Ooh. So, yeah, ego. I think that it's important to recognize when it's your ego and be willing to let it go.
Okay, so ego versus pride. Because there's a healthy version of pride that you can have, but sometimes it kind of like teeters that line. So how did you know that it was your ego and not your pride in the work that you were doing?
I think the question is intention. So asking myself, why was that important? Why was that important to me, what I was focused on? And then I understood it was about feeling like people didn't truly understand my value or what I was doing. And so it was my way of proving to them my value or what I can do, right? And so it wasn't about pride. It was more like, why are you so focused on this? Is it about your intentions or what's important to you, or is it more about proving to somebody else, like, this is what I'm able to do? Don't doubt me. Don't play me, don't play me down. This is who I am, what I can do, and feeling like people didn't really recognize that. And so I was trying to prove it to them, but in turn was kind of losing sight of what ultimately I was really trying to accomplish.
So, Wendy's not in the hot seat. Okay, I'm going to ask you 2 more questions. I'm going to let you flip.
I'm sorry. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Curate. I am holding the note cards.
Do not start. Yeah, she is holding these note cards for a reason. Okay, because I got to ask you this because you are, at least to my knowledge, the only Black woman in this area doing what you do. So there has to be like a part of you that still got to show up that way. And so what was the question that made you realize that, like, oh, okay, like when you start a project, because I actually heard you say this before, but I want you to answer it here. Like, before you start a project, what is the one thing that you ask yourself about this property that you're about to develop that makes you think about the communities that you're serving?
Okay. So you said you asked me that before. I have no idea what I said to you. My answer right now might be different.
That's fine.
Part of I specialize in low income housing, mixed income housing. So I'm really housing underserved people.
Yes.
During your Curate conference, one of your speakers started talking about really understanding the journey or the lived experience of the people you are trying to serve. You can become so far removed from it that you think you know what somebody needs, but how would I know? part of what I've tried to work harder at is understanding, like really I worked at a company that was a nonprofit. They were the Sisters of Mercy. So they started developing housing only because they couldn't reach people in the community. They were out serving people in the community, ministering to people in the community, and people were really interested to hear what they had to say. Yeah. So what they realized was if you don't have safe, decent, affordable housing, if you don't have a place to live, you're not really interested in any of this other stuff. So they started to develop housing as a means to an end, really. It was less about the housing. It was more about if I can house you, then I can serve you, right? So I've started to look at housing in that same way more recently than I ever have. And I will say largely because of the Curate conference. I've always had a high commitment to like providing the best level of housing, no matter what your income level is. But also saying like, I think I know what this single mom needs, right? So I'm a stickler on it has to be at least 2 bedrooms. Yes. 2 bathrooms. A lot of people say, oh, it's 2 bedroom, 1 bath. Well, I'm like, as a mom, you're a single mom, you get home from a long day's work, you want to be able to go escape in the bathroom. Correct. And not have your kids knocking on the door. But there's a cost associated with me adding another bathroom, right? So the question becomes, this is what I said to myself is important to a single mom. Yes. But the question becomes, what's most important to you as I'm housing you, right? If I said I'm spending X to be able to provide another bathroom, you may say, I really need a top tier alarm system, right? In a whole different way than I've ever seen. And so my point is just going into these development opportunities, also understanding like, what do the people I'm serving really need? I don't know if that's what I said. Was it? Okay.
This is, but then that's so funny because we had this conversation after the Curate conference when you and I were kind of like debriefing about it. And so the reason why I asked you that question is because there is a focus that you have to have on the people that you serve, but then there is a certain level of that pride that you were talking about that has to show up for you because you're the only Black woman in this space doing this. And I feel like sometimes people will really play on you.
They do.
All right. You ready to flip the script? All the rest of my cards are blank, guys. I have no more questions.
So, yes, I'm excited to have an opportunity to sit down and talk to you. We are here because we will sit and talk for hours on end. Yes. My team has literally gotten to the point where they say when you walk in the office, they basically expect that the rest of the day is going to be shut down.
Oh, dang.
And so, through that, I know a lot of people in the city may know you. I've had the benefit of being gone for so long and coming back and not having any perspective on who you were. I just knew you as a part of Fourth Floor and like your current image of Victoria, right? And so I recognize that you spend a lot of time interviewing people, allowing them to tell their story. I watch all your interviews because I'm like, oh, I would really like to understand this person better, right? Like just, I know them, I've talked to them, but I don't know their whole background and their whole story.
Correct.
And so you are very thoughtful about that, the people you choose to come on, the questions you ask. But I'm like, who are you? Because you're very private. And, you are one of those people that have the skill set of being like fake vulnerable. Like, I'm vulnerable, I talk, but really like, who are you, right? Okay. And so.
Fake vulnerable.
I mean, you know what I mean? Like really vulnerable, but you're still guarded.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. So we'll start with, I'm going to call it an icebreaker. It's not quite an icebreaker.
Okay.
So I want to start by asking, what does the Curate symbol,
okay.
What does the Curate symbol represent?
Okay. This will be the only time that I actually say this word right because I have come to the realization that I don't really care to say it right because after I say it today, y'all going to know what it means, okay?
There we go.
So the Curate symbol is an asterisk. This is just proof that I know how to say it, but I call it an asterisk, okay?
Say what you call it one more time.
Asterisk.
Asterisk. Okay, an asterisk. Okay.
I want y'all to put in the comments, like, how many of you actually know what I'm talking about when I say asterisk? Because I feel like everybody always say it like that.
No, they don't. So I'm going to tell y'all how we got here. I think I was watching back clips from the Curate conference, and I was like, well, the logo is an asterisk. But she's saying asterisk. So I was like, I've heard her say asterisk all along. Maybe I don't know what that is. And so I texted Victoria and I said, are you saying asterisk or asterisk? Because I looked it up and there's really such thing as an asterisk who would be perfectly in line with the vision for Curate. It's like a mythical female symbol.
So I thank you for even asking me that question, because it's so funny. Wendy always think I'm way deeper than I am. And so when I looked up Ashray, because I was like, is there a difference? Because I was looking up Ashray and I was like, oh, it's a goddess.
It's a goddess.
Y'all go look it up. It, you know, because they also have like different meanings. I don't want to give like a specific meaning for that, but the reason why the Curate logo is an asterisk is because it is a symbol of clarity. Okay, and so oftentimes people are somewhat confused about what is Curate. A lot of people want to make this a women empowerment organization. And I think that sure, women can be empowered from something that they've learned or an event that they've attended, but that's not my goal, is for this to be a women empowerment organization. Partially because I don't believe in women empowerment. I don't think that that is real. I don't think that anybody has the power to empower you. You can be inspired by something that I'm doing, but empowerment, I think, is more of a feeling. And so you can be inspired by something that I'm doing, and then you feel empowered to go do what you are called to do. And so from Curate events, from these fireside chats that we have, my hope is that if a woman may be struggling with finding her purpose, or knowing that she has a purpose and not fully understand how to execute that, then by attending an event and by watching these, that she may become completely unconfused. That she has now clarity on, oh, I can do this. Because also I believe, and this is truly how these fireside chats started, sometimes we can see women and we can be so heavily inspired by them. You become so easily discouraged. It could be intimidating, and it could cause you to take a step back and not do what you want to do, because
overwhelming. Like it's too overwhelming for you.
Yeah, and so you could look at other women and you can just think like, dang, I'll never get that far. Like, you know, I'm literally just starting. You start to consider how old you are. You start to consider like all the steps that she had to take. But then when we sit down and we have these types of conversations, you realize, oh, this woman has the same struggles as me, by the success of other women, even though you're inspired by them. And so it can cause you to be like, if you're a perfectionist in a way, then you'll be like, well, I'm not gonna get started until I know I could get to that place. But there's work that it takes to get there, and it's not easy. And it doesn't matter how far you get, you're still going to have those same feelings. So you might as well build.
Yeah, I think the other problem with that is if you are focused on what they have.
Yes.
And you're saying, how can I do that?
Yes.
Then that is overwhelming and discouraging, because this has been an evolution to get here. And so that's why I think empower versus inspired.
Yes.
If you look at them and feel inspired by what they've achieved and then try to search for like what you really are trying to achieve, then you shouldn't be overwhelmed about trying to get there, because you're not trying to get here.
Correct.
I didn't try to get here. I didn't know I was going here.
Correct.
Right? And so it's a journey. And so you really have to be more locked into, let me take this as inspiration as I figure out how to put a step forward.
Yes.
And, you know, try to reach my journey. Okay, so let me ask you one question. It's just a yes or no answer, because I'm going to come back to it.
Okay.
Are you completely unconfused today?
Sometimes.
Sometimes. Okay. All right, good. What I want us to do right now is take a journey to Curate. What I know of your childhood is you come from, I feel like you lived in a very stable, middle-class Black community, right? You were the only girl, and every time you talk, you say Stacy, Victoria, Stacy, Tracy, Brandon.
Yeah.
I think you always say how your mom would like call all four of your names. So I know you were the only girl in that family. I think what's interesting to me is that through watching your interviews, you have described certain aspects of your childhood as being like problematic. You talked about like watching all kind of stuff you had no business watching, right? And then I thought, I was watching an interview between you and Courtney Scott, and she said, you know, my mom and I had a true mother-daughter relationship. And you said, so toxic.
Yeah.
But toxic wasn't the thought that came to my mind, right? So I thought I was like, see, this is what I want to unpack and understand, right?
Okay.
So tell me a little bit about your childhood. Like when you grew up in Baton Rouge, like, you know, just kind of, you know, walk me through some of that.
Yes, so I grew up in Baton Rouge in Scotlandville, and it's so funny because people who are not from Baton Rouge, they assume that all of Scotlandville is the ghetto, right? They assume that it is the hood, but I grew up in a part of Scotlandville called Southern Heights. And it was filled with really successful Black people, doctors, lawyers, professors, educators, everybody, right? And because we lived in that neighborhood, I think that people assumed that we come from that same level of socioeconomic status. We did not. We were actually, and I didn't know that, well, I did. I didn't understand it to the level that I know it now, is that we were poor. And because we lived in this space and because people thought that this is who we were, then opportunities just kind of flooded us, right? Like I was able to take karate, but it's not because my parents were paying for it. It was because someone thought that, oh, this would be really good for them. And my dad did it with me and my brother, so it became a family thing. We played every single sport. We did every single thing.
Was your dad in the house with you growing up?
Yes and no.
Okay.
He worked offshore. He still works offshore. So if you're familiar with that kind of work, he'll be gone for months at a time. And then back home.
So did you feel like growing up, your dad, you came from a 2-parent family?
Yes.
Even though he was away, you felt like he was present in the house?
Let me tell you how aware I was of my situation from when my parents were married and when they were divorced. When they were married, I had a sense of pride of having a 2-parent household, even though my parents divorced when I was 11. So I was very young when they divorced, but I still carried this sense of pride, like both of my parents still live together, even though I knew it was toxic. Nobody on the outside knew that, and so it was cool. I still carried this sense of like, you know, maybe eventually they'll get it together. Eventually, never happened. She worked at it was Casino Rouge. I don't know what it's called now. It's like Crown, whatever now. But she used to work there overnight, and then eventually she worked for Baton Rouge Police Department for a lot of years, but was also an overnight job.
So growing up, your mom worked overnight shift.
Yep.
Your dad would be gone offshore for months. So what did that look like in the household?
Child, we was raising ourselves. Do you remember the box? Did y'all have the box?
Yes.
Okay. My oldest brother, still not 18, right, but still ordering stuff off the box. We were watching movies.
The boxes where you could rent. I remember from videos, like paying for videos.
Easy to use.
Okay.
But you remember you had to be 18 or older, or somebody, you had to have a parent in the house to be doing that.
Call a number and you could select it, and you would be waiting on your video to pop up on TV.
Exactly.
Right, okay.
And so, you know, we wouldn't calling in for gospel music.
Right.
We was calling in for, you know, anyway.
So tell me because part of it is the order of your brother. You're the youngest?
Yes.
Okay, so what's the ages of your brothers? How much older than you are?
So my oldest brother is 5 years older than me.
Oh, okay.
Brandon, and then Stacy and Tracy are twins. They're 2 years older than me.
So yeah, y'all were little kids, like theoretically he could be in 5th grade and you like in kindergarten. It wasn't like it's a big older brother that's like.
No.
Okay. All right.
No, and he was and still is my best friend.
Oh, good. Okay.
Because I think that he was wide awake to our lives. It's Stacy and Tracy, they grew up in La La Land. They probably still live in La La Land. Like the way that, and it's crazy how you can grow up in the same household and experience life totally different. And so that's, you know, I feel like that's also pretty normal. So anyways, we grew up in Southern Heights, which is a very esteemed Black neighborhood in Scotlandville. We had a lot of friends who grew up in households with doctors, lawyers, you know, that was their parents and their grandparents. And so in addition to that, my dad, even though he works offshore, he's an educated Black man. So many of his peers are lawyers and, you know, very successful people. And we grew up with their children. Now, living in the house that I lived in and being with my best friend, cousin, sister, Ebony, you know, there was a huge difference in how we lived. And so I think that early on I understood that, like, oh, you're poor and we are not the same. But you can't show up acting like, you know, you can't be looking like what you're going through. So, and as an adult, I think that's kind of, you know, I think that's God's grace in giving me that level of understanding at a very young age. Because now that I'm older, I look back and I'm like, I was never confused about
your status. Let me ask you a perspective question. So, did your parents own their home?
No.
Okay, so they were renting the house in Southern Heights.
I don't even know if they were renting. That house that we lived in belonged to my family.
It was a family
house. It still
house.
belonged
I
to my
got you.
family.
So part of what is interesting, I just read Viola Davis's book, and the poverty and poorness of what she experienced.
Oh my God.
It was probably one of the most depressing autobiographies I've ever read, just because of the.
Girl, Oprah called her po.
Yeah,
and Oprah was like, I grew up poor.
Yeah.
And you grew up po.
So that's why I'm asking this, because I think there may be people that lived like that were living in like poverty.
Yeah.
That hear that you lived in Southern Heights in a home with a daddy and a mama who both work. So I'm trying to understand what part of your, because it's hard to compare your life to middle upper class, Black people in the 80s. What year were you born? In the 90s, 80s, 90s, because they were doctors and lawyers. And so even though I came from a single parent teacher household for a lot of my life, if I was probably around people like that, it may have made me feel poor.
Yeah.
But the question is then, if you take your scenario with two parents that were working, you lived in a house in one of the nicest Black neighborhoods at the time, and they lived in something different, would they compare that to being poor?
I've actually never had this conversation with my parents, so I don't know what they would consider themselves as at
I'm
that
saying,
time.
what would you consider?
But me, for sure, poor.
You do?
Yes. Not in comparison to the people that I grew up with.
Okay.
Even understanding now as an adult, and my husband and I, working and doing, it wasn't even this when I was growing up.
Because you didn't have you couldn't say, hey, Mom, I want to learn how to play the trumpet. And she was like, we don't have no money for no trumpet. Or what did it look like?
I mean, some days no food.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Like me and my brothers would be sharing ramen noodles. Girl, we always talk about, my brother was very creative in how we ate. And so, or my mom would cook one meal and we would eat it for the week. Not because she didn't want to cook multiple times a week. I just don't think that we had it for her to do it.
Really?
And even though my dad worked offshore, my mom also worked money management in Black households. That is a huge, that I feel like that caused a huge deficit in how we were able to really grow up. And then when my parents divorced, obviously
things were different.
Yeah, very different.
Sometimes I wonder too, because what's always important to me as I'm raising 3 kids is what their experience is. And so a perfect example is juggling, having a business, being a part of all these different organizations and trying to still have a life for yourself, and having 3 kids that are busy. And sometimes I'm in a fend for yourself kind of moment, right? I'm there got something in the refrigerator that y'all can figure out what to eat,
right?
And so I wonder, it's so interesting to me how also you never know exactly how your children experience life and what they take from that.
Yeah.
Right? What they experience, or what reasons they have to give themselves for why things are the way they are. Yeah. And not to say that what you're describing isn't real, but it's as a child, you have to start to try to understand your experience in a way that you can make it make sense.
Yeah. Well, when I think about the bicycles that we had, my parents didn't buy them. When I think about the sports that we played, my parents didn't pay for that. Inside of my house was the floors were, I remember in my room, the tiles are cracked and broken and, whatever.
Did you ever experience shame? Because you were so aware of the difference between your situation and the people around you. Did you feel shame?
Now that I understand what shame is, yes. Did I show up shameful? No, I showed up as whoever people wanted me to be. And so I learned very soon how to code switch. I knew how to make people believe that I had what they thought that I had, because I wouldn't tell them anything different.
Did you feel you were the only girl with 3 brothers and a dad? Growing up, did you, I don't know what your relationship was like with your brothers. Did you feel protected? What was that like growing up in a house with 3 older brothers? did you feel like nobody's ever gonna mess with me because my 3 brothers not gonna play that? Or did they beat up on you and make you feel insecure? You know, 'cause some brothers will like try to toughen you up for the world. So then in turn, they're like really making you feel very insecure about yourself. Like, what was your experience?
So I don't know if it's because Stacey and Tracy are so close in age to me. I don't know if I felt protected by them. Brandon, for sure. I never knew growing up that Brandon was only 5 years older than me. Like I knew it, but it never felt that way. He always felt way older.
Okay.
I actually have an ex-boyfriend that was like really afraid of Brandon. And I think even in like adult years, if he see him today, he probably still is afraid of him. My brother actually whooped me with a belt, with an actual belt.
It's like, I'm your daddy.
I was in high school and I had invited my ex-boyfriend to come and like watch movies at the house. Like, and I'm not even saying this being funny, but it was a very innocent, like, come over, watch movies with me. But it was just me and him.
Yeah.
My oldest brother, but all of my brothers were away at college.
Okay.
He came back home. I wasn't expecting him back home, but I had my mom's permission. Girl, the boy said, I don't care who permission you got. You ain't got my permission. I was like, you
and
tripping.
I'm about to tear you up.
You tripping. He was like, you could go. And then I'm like, no, you can stay. I don't know who he think he is. He was like, get out. And the boy, he ain't put up a fight or nothing. He was just like, oh, I'm gonna talk to you later. You know, and I'm like, what is wrong with, I'm like going back and forth with my brother. Girl, that boy took out a belt and he really started whooping me. And then we had a fight, like a real fight. So anyway.
So he went from being your dad to back to being your brother,
right? It's so funny because they call you
your dad, and then he fought you like your brother.
But now I'm like, when I think about this, I'm like, even though that guy wasn't dangerous whatsoever.
Right.
My brother was like, you at home by yourself.
Yeah.
You don't know what people are capable of. Like, you think you know him, you think you trust him, but I've seen things go very south really quick because of stupid, young, whatever girls like you.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So sometimes, now I do, in high school though, Stacey and Tracy did have like this like tough guy kind of, I never went to school with Brandon. I was always too young to go to school with him. But there was this guy in 9th grade. He was like, we don't count him as a boyfriend, okay? He was just somebody that okay, we liked him, whatever. Okay. But he was a football player. He didn't know that I had brothers at this school that were also football players. So he goes into, and not only do I have twin brothers that are football players, all of their friends I also grew up with. Okay. Like, I'm talking about.
So they're all your brothers?
They're all my brothers. Yes. So he talking about this girl, she a cheerleader, and we kissed today.
Ooh.
And he lied. I'm like,
first of all,
you out here lying about a kiss. The crazy thing is, Wendy, I would have kissed him, but you out here lying about the kiss.
Right.
And so then my brothers roll up in cheerleading practice, and they like, Victoria. And so this is Stacey, Tracy, Big D, and Cal, and they all walked into cheerleading practice. They like, Vicky, you out here kissing? You ain't been in high school 2 seconds, and you already kissing people? I was like, I never kissed him. He's lying. Why are you doing that? Right. And they literally stuffed him in a trash can and pushed the trash can through the gym.
Is this a 90s movie? You know, those high school movies, right?
But I'm going to make my brothers go in the comments and be like, that definitely happened, because it was hilarious. I was like, oh my gosh, now y'all embarrassing me. It wasn't that serious. He lied about a kiss. He was trying to impress y'all. He didn't know, though.
That's interesting. Okay, so we may come back to some of that. So you took, I don't know what the proper term, you took karate, or you were doing karate lessons. You were a cheerleader at the time. Were you in any other sports? Like, what other stuff did you do extracurricular?
I did not become a cheerleader, not a real cheerleader. I cheered for like little bitty Pee-wee teams, whatever. But I didn't become an actual cheerleader till high school. So it was just boxing and karate. Okay.
And so what type of student were you? A's, B's, C's, D's, F? What type of student were you?
Definitely was not a DF student.
Okay.
ABC.
Okay. ABC, that's okay.
Until senior year, until I started realizing like, oh, I want to do, I didn't think I wanted to go to Southern. I thought I wanted to go other places. And so I started taking school a little bit more serious.
That's what I'm trying to get. So perfect segue. So you decide you want to go to college. Did you know what you wanted to do? Did you have in your mind? So you were just like, I know I kind of need to go to college next because everybody else is doing it. But where did you want to go? Because I feel like when I was coming out of high school, the decision to go to college is very different than it is today. Like, you didn't have to start working in 9th grade. And it wasn't it wasn't as hard and as stressed as it is to get into college. So we weren't pressed about it like kids are now. So were you pressed about it?
No.
Okay. But in in 12th grade, you started thinking about it.
Yeah, because I didn't realize that there were requirements to get in college. I was just like, it was whatever.
Right. Okay.
I was like, oh, they keep talking about this ACT foolishness. Maybe I should start taking it serious.
Okay.
But no, I knew that I always wanted to go to an HBCU.
Okay.
And
what, you didn't have one in mind?
Well, for some reason, I always wanted my life to be in Texas.
Okay.
Why did I want to live? Because all of my favorite cousins lived in Texas.
Okay.
Every summer, me and my brothers would go to Texas. That's where our cousins kind of lived the same kind of reckless lifestyle we was living. We get to watch whatever we want to watch. We get to do whatever we want to do. So I thought I was going to end up in Texas. I wanted to go to Prairie View.
Okay.
Prairie View.
Yeah, I get them mixed. I say the same thing.
Prairie
View is the city. Prairie View is the school. But it takes me like saying it wrong before I'm like, that's not how you say it.
Correct. Okay. I wanted to go to Prairie View.
So, but you ended up at Southern.
Yeah, my best friend was trying out for cheerleading at Southern, and she didn't want to go by herself, and so she was like, you should come with me. And I'm like, oh, okay, because I certainly didn't think that I would make the cheerleading squad at Southern, and I did. That's how I stayed there.
Before college.
Summer
okay,
before
so
college.
you go.
We were actually still in high school.
You go randomly with a best friend to a cheer tryout.
Yep.
And of course, because you are who you are,
okay,
you get on the team.
I made the squad.
You make the squad, and so that's how you ended up at Southern.
Yes, that's how I ended up at Southern.
And so did you graduate?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know. I live in Baton Rouge, where Southern University is. So some people went to Southern.
Oh yeah, went to Southern. Yes, I went to Southern. I graduated in public relations and marketing.
So how did you realize that was going to be your major? Did you start in that?
I kind of feel like I was like voluntold a little bit. I don't know if I was voluntold, but I had a professor, and she was. Anyway, I started in. First I thought I wanted to go to school for psychology. Took my first psychology course, thought my teacher was a psycho, and then I was just like, this is probably not for me.
He was probably pretending it was part of the learning experience.
No, he really was a psycho, but I really do feel like I wish that I had stuck with it because he, anyways, I wish I had stuck with it. But so then I picked up broadcast journalism because I'm like, oh, that's easy. It just seems easy. Until I got in this one lady's class, Dr. Fuller. And I shout her out on purpose, keep that in there, because this woman told me that I had the worst speaking voice that she had ever heard, and I should choose a different major. She was like, this is not the career for you. And I was like, oh my God.
I can't stand hearing you speak. Your voice is...
Well, kind of.
What does that mean, the worst speaking voice?
She was telling me...
the tone of your voice, the sound of your voice is the worst voice she's ever heard.
I don't know if she said that it was the worst voice she ever heard.
I'm sorry.
But I don't know if she said it was the worst voice she ever heard, but she did say that I did not have a good speaking voice, that I had a pretty bad. But we had to do these things where we would sit like in a news desk and we'd have to do
that weird fake kind of, not fake, but the weird news. And you're coming on to the thing.
Correct.
And you didn't do that well.
Well, I thought I did. I thought that I did, but she was like, no, you don't have a good speaking voice. And she did it in such a way that was so demeaning that I pretended like I did not care. But the very next semester, I was a public relations major. And nothing, it wasn't too different other than it enhances your writing skills.
But you believed her.
I did, because Wendy, nobody likes the sound of their own voice.
I got it.
So, but nobody knows that everybody doesn't like the sound of their own voice. So if I'm already thinking I hate my voice and then you tell me you hate my voice, well, then you just kind of solidify that I have a horrible speaking voice in my mind and when we're insecure about something, if somebody speaks to it, a hit dog will holler.
I always say the only time something really matters that somebody says about you is either if it comes from somebody you really care about and respect, or if you believe it to be true.
Yes, and imagine if both of those things happen at the same time. Yeah.
So what's interesting to me is, you were a nail tech at one point. I don't know if it was a nonprofit, it was something with the DA's off, all of the things. And so people see you were Curate and they're like, oh, she stumbled on that. But no, you have a degree in what now?
Public relations and marketing.
Which makes perfect sense. It all makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
It makes perfect sense. Okay.
And I'm also speaking on camera, which is hilarious because I never thought that I would do that
you
again.
Be behind the camera.
Yes.
Or public relations is really like a behind the scenes kind of person. Wow. So you cheered. I always look at Southern cheerleaders as, they were kind of extra. They can dance. They're kind of popular. Yeah. Did you feel popular in college?
I don't know. Not really.
You didn't think about it like, yeah.
No, I didn't really think about because I was friends with all my teammates. And we kind of stayed in our own little silos. Like we had our own little jam going. And people knew us, but they knew us because...
Y'all cheered.
Well, they knew us because they knew us.
Okay.
Because I didn't really cheer. They were still cheering for Southern when I wasn't. And I still had my same friends. Okay. So did I feel popular? I don't know.
Did you stay on campus or you stayed at home?
I stayed on campus for 1 semester and then I got an apartment.
So you basically, after high school, you did not live at home again?
Oh, no. So me and my mom, by
that time, y'all were really clashing.
I mean, by middle school, by the time her and my dad divorced, we were clashing. Because I just thought, I knew better. I was, I'm an adult. I also saw my mom as Jennifer way too soon. I saw her as a woman.
Way too soon.
When she was still supposed to be your mom. Yeah, she was still supposed to be.
Did you ever transition back to seeing her as mom?
Now that I am a mom.
Wow.
I am trying to learn her in a more graceful way. I am trying to understand my mom in a way that is less judgmental, more friendly,
Do you know your mom's story?
Yes, I do.
Like all of it?
Yes. Some of it I know that she doesn't even know that I know because she got some...
But I think even in that, to me, when Iyanla was having those, Iyanla Fixed My Life, which I was...
That's what you reminded me of right now. I'm like, girl, we in therapy right now.
I was obsessed with those. But I think part of it was she always forced the person to learn and understand their parents' journey, because it was like, if you can understand them outside of just being your parent, then you can show them grace.
Absolutely.
And so it sounds like it took you becoming a mom to start to really say, oh, she wasn't just, I don't have to just look at her from that lens of how she didn't show up in the way I really wanted her to. Are you willing to talk about what you wanted from her that she didn't provide you?
Yeah. So when my parents divorced, I was 11 years old. And that is the point in your life when you need your mom, as a girl, when you need your mom. And so the things that I wanted and needed from my mom, I feel like she was also in a transitional period in her life where she needed to redefine who she was. And she needed to understand herself as a woman. And, because she's recently divorced. She out there, it's time to date again. She became a hot girl again. I'm like, she started dating again.
She's living a life she hadn't had an opportunity to live.
Correct, because she was a mom at 19.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
okay,
she became a mom at 19. And then shortly after that, she married my dad. Now, do I think that, and then that's a whole different side of her journey that I'm like, now knowing both of my parents, I'm like, they probably weren't even in love when they got married. They got married because
the circumstances that required it.
Correct. And my dad,
back in the day, especially.
My dad also comes from, both of his parents were college educated in a time where Black people were not. And they didn't play that. You're not about to have no bastard child out here, in the street. That's not, it just wasn't a thing. And then my mom, though she didn't come from a family of people who were college educated, they still were not playing you're not about to just be out here having babies and not get married.
Exactly.
And back then I feel like they totally controlled that whole situation.
So you said you needed her at 11 as your mom, right? When she was divorcing your dad and she wasn't able to show up as your mom. For me, I didn't necessarily experience that with my mom. So I don't know exactly I want you to explain, what did you need? Were you going through or were you, what were you needing? And maybe you can't articulate it because sometimes it's just I can't tell you what I needed, But can you say like what you feel like you were looking for or needing from her? Was it just physically being present or what?
There were so many things. Like, okay, so I danced. I was on a dance team in middle school. And I spent so much time with one of my friends whose mom was her everything. She knew how to do makeup in middle school because her mom was teaching her how to do those things. Her mom would show up to every single game that we had. My mom was working, and she would, anytime, I just felt like it was so many things. Like emotionally, though, I had, my mama was one of those, because I said so, so if she said so and I didn't understand why she was saying so, if I asked her a question, it was like I was challenging her. And so, that just kind of killed that whole part of our...
Because you couldn't even talk to her about what you needed in a way that you felt like she would be like, oh, I hear you. It was like, girl, sit down. I'm over here. Go get out of my face with that.
Yeah, if I like the boy, child, we're not talking to her about it.
In that, right.
Correct. Even if she was interested, there was no... She was... she had discovered a new set of friends.
She was busy.
She was busy. She really did have a totally different life. But adult Vicky now understands, like, what would your life look like if you divorced
You can
Ross?
See it now at your age with other people that you know, right? That are experiencing some of the things that your mom experienced.
Yes. Or I can see some of my friends being to their children what my mom was to me in middle school.
That's what I'm saying.
And I'm just like, don't do that. Remember what it felt like to be that child.
What's your love language?
Quality time.
Quality time.
Yes.
Makes so much sense now, right? You weren't experiencing love from her.
Right.
In the way you needed to receive it.
Yes.
Hers may be acts of service, or like, I'm providing for you, like I'm giving you certain things, but you needed her to physically be there and give you time for you to experience it.
Yes.
That's interesting. Okay, fast forward back to you get your own apartment, you in college, you're doing your thing, you're going through the journey of publicist, what's this thing called? Public relations and doing the things. At this point, are you having like any type of vision about like what's next after college?
Oh man, this is where I think about my life and I'm like, I have so many regrets.
Okay.
Because my life was so wrapped around in stuff that did not matter, like the person that I was dating and the things that and even though graduation was like, that was something that was important to me, I was still thinking in terms of a child, like, okay, when I graduate here, then I'm going to go work for a marketing firm and then I'm going to, whatever. And I had like those types of dreams, but they were not ambitious. It was just, this is the next step in life. And this is, this is what you're supposed to do. But I wasn't putting heavy emphasis on who I wanted to be when I grew up.
I think that that's all of us. You know why? Because like I started college at 17. What do we know about anything? So we're so young, like literally making a decision about what we think we want to do with the rest of our lives. And we don't have any perspective on that at that age.
Well, who taught you? Because see, this is also my beef with parenting. Like we grew up being raised as children. Like I'm raising my kids to be such and such. No, you're raising an adult.
But there is so I have Marley's 14. Even with having a 14-year-old, there is a capacity issue that comes into play. I was a very mature kid, but there are certain things that are just beyond your capacity, right? And so, children are very impulsive. They're thinking about right now, right? And that starts to like go, subside with time. But I think that when you're talking to a 18, 19, 20-year-old about the future, they don't have any real perspective about that. Even in terms of how I talk to my kids, I'm constantly looking at them about what is your gifting or talent? Like what is really like who are you?
Yeah.
And then how do I set you up to be successful in that for the rest of your life? But I can't have that conversation with them and like really expect them to be like saying like, yeah, so I love to read and I want to be a literary agent and I can see they have no capacity for that, right?
I think that Ross does this really well with our kids, that even me, oh Lord, Ross helped me grow up. Thank you, Lord. I always like to say that we are not raising kids. We are raising adults.
Okay.
And so even though we can't build the capacity for them, we can provide the resources that they need to be who they think they want to be. So that nothing gets lost in the wind. So for instance, we have a 15-year-old son. His name is Jaden. When Jaden, when he was a little boy, we were like, oh, we should put you into piano, because if you like music at all, Ross loves music. So we put him in piano. He played piano for a while. He doesn't necessarily know then, like, oh, I like that, or I want to do that. But like, as you get older, when you do start to realize, oh, I want to do this, or I want to do that, that we're going to provide the space for you to figure that part out. So like, there was, for a very short time, Jaden was like, oh, I want to practice beats. I want to do beats. I want to make beats. I want to be a producer. Well, I don't know if he said he wanted to be a producer, but, he wanted to kind of dabble in that space. And so Ross bought him a MacBook, and was like, all right, here's the Pro Tools. Here's all the things that you need to be great. Any questions that you have, I'm here. I could walk you through all of it. Now Jaden wants to bake. And I'm like, all right, so whatever you need to become a baker. And people, they may have a difference of opinion of like the way that we do that with our kids. But I mean, as an adult, we explore different things and different career paths that we like. And we don't always settle on what we want to be when we grow up. So why not cultivate these different spaces?
I've heard the expression, quote, whatever you want to call it, that we parent our children from our younger selves. So essentially, the way I parent my kids is based off of what I experienced as a kid. Like, I was kind of shy, and like, that's kind of how I've overcorrected to be like, you're not gonna talk crazy to me, period. Because when I was younger, I would just not stand up for myself in that same way.
Oh, I could not see it, Wendy.
No, so I'm telling you, it was like a shift happened, and it was just like, oh,
yeah,
hard line, you're not playing with me anymore.
Now how though?
But my point though,
I'm not shifting this to you.
Yeah, you are.
But I'm just asking, like, how though?
I think that's a much longer conversation to unpack. But my point is that
She really trying not to be in the hot seat.
I'm really not going to be in this. But my point is just how I raise my kids. So like, you are not letting anybody pick on you. Did he say that to you? Oh, no. But then the truth is, I'm really just parenting my child based on what I experienced and maybe what I wanted in the moment. Like, my mom was an educator, a teacher, so she was like, there was no circumstance where she was okay with you fighting in school. However, my mom used to beat the brakes off of people growing up. So she was the fighter in the family. But yet when you raised us saying like, you are not supposed to fight. You can't fight. That's a problem. Not like defend yourself if somebody pushes you too far. So what you find is like, it's a constant boomeranging that's occurred, right? Like she was beating the brakes off people. She told me I can't fight. I'm be telling my kids beat the brakes off of them if they mess with you. So
your kids gonna grow up like, please
don't beat the brakes off of nobody. Although my kids are in a totally different environment, so they're like, you really need to relax. But
your kids ain't nowhere where they need to be.
They will not. I'll be begging them to. And I'm just kidding.
Your kids ain't sacred heart. Ain't nobody over there.
We don't do that over there.
Yeah, we don't do that.
But I say that because part of what you're describing about like, I tell Ross, we're not raising kids. We're raising people that are, we're raising adults. Anything your kids say they want to do, you're going to be like, how can I facilitate that for you? Part of it feels like I can see where you are making parenting decisions based on what you wish you would have experienced. That, not to say I don't completely agree with you. I think that's amazing.
Well, that part of my parenting journey, I actually learned from Ross.
Okay.
Because to me, it just kind of forces me to think outside of the box. It makes me think like, wow, what if, these things what if somebody really poured into me in that way if I had shared, I want to be a news anchor when I grow up, right? I wonder what it would have been like if my mom or my dad would have been like, okay, well, let's see what summer camps they have out there that cultivates news anchors. Yeah. Because I really did want to be a news anchor. So that lady told me that my voice was horrible.
But I think part of it too is like, I free myself sometimes with the damage that I'm probably doing to my kids, right? So like, we could provide them every single thing, and do everything in our minds that is right. And they will still be in somebody's therapist chair talking about something that happened to them, right?
Absolutely.
So like one of my friends said, our job is to keep them like basically where they have to meditate, not medicate, right? Because like they don't have to meditate. We doing something wrong. So like my kids have to fend for themselves in the morning for breakfast. I don't care what you're eating. Go and figure out breakfast for yourself because I'm trying to get out of the house into my office at a certain time. My kids could very easily be in somebody's therapist chair saying like, my mama didn't even care about what we ate in the morning. Like I remember my brother eating ice cream one day. Like, I'm like, if I got to give you something to talk about, I'd rather you be talking about that I had to eat ice cream versus like some super traumatic thing. So I think for me as a parent, that's been a freeing. Now this is also me just giving myself excuses to be like, girl, you can't be perfect. Right. I mean, I think to some degree I'm saying that to you because it also feels like you are trying to problem solve for what you know could be problematic or challenging for a child. Like, oh, you said this, if I had that, ooh. But you also recognize that in doing everything, if you could look back and say, I did everything, girl, you were perfect as a mother.
Yeah, the crazy thing is, I know this to not be so, you know, of all of my kids, I'm actually afraid of when Jaden's therapy sessions look like as it concerns me, because I became his stepmom at 21.
Ooh. Oh, this is good. Pause. Because I want to get, so you graduate from college.
Yes. Well, no. Okay.
Because how old were you when you graduated from college?
Rossi was born when I graduated from college.
So you took a break. You didn't go all the way through. Or you kind of went all the way through, but wasn't taking a full course load.
I'ma just
it took you longer than 4 years, basically.
Well, for the sake of for my school not looking as trifling as, you know, as it could be.
Okay.
Well, no, because I was actually preparing for graduation my last year of college, and then literally a few weeks before graduation, my advisor said, oh, well, you're missing a course.
Okay. You should have told me that last year. Basically, like,
no, you should have told me that at the beginning of the year when we actually go through the graduation
When I was selecting my classes, I would have known that.
Well, you know, you got to go through a graduation checklist where they like make sure that you're on board because this is your semester to graduate.
Okay, I don't remember that. But anyway, so you ended up having to take extending
after I did not graduate that semester, I went back the next semester. They didn't have the course. They went back the next semester. And like seriously. And so
were you working then, or were you just still taking random classes?
Yeah, I was working because at a certain point, because now I'm dating Ross, who is an adult in my mind. Because I mean, he has a career that he's been in for a while. He has a kid, you know, house, car. Like,
how old were you?
21.
You were 21 when y'all started dating, and you were working at the time and going to school. So you had jobs while you were in college.
Yes.
Okay. So what were you doing for your job?
Oh,
you don't even remember?
No,
because you just did a little bit of everything.
Yes.
Okay. So you working, you meet Ross. Kind of you playing around with being an adult, but now you meet this guy.
Like really
this
playing
guy
around.
Comes into your life. Right, I get it. That's what y'all doing at 21.
I was still playing around even when. So I had this thing about me where I was like, I'm not dating. I was ending something, and I was like, my next boyfriend gonna be grown. You know, my man, he gonna be grown. He not gonna be in college. He gonna have a real job. You know, but I'm not dating no man with no kid. And
that whole checklist.
That was my whole. That
was your checklist.
That was my only stipulation.
Be grown and not have a child.
Well, that I was being funny. I'm like, girl, you ain't bringing nothing to the table. It was, you know, it was just a joke. But I was not playing about he can't have a kid.
Okay.
I was like,
So Ross comes along, who you've known. How long had you known?
Life,
you knew him your whole life. He was from your neighborhood?
Not at all. We went to he went to middle school with my brothers.
Okay.
First, he met my brothers first, and then we thought we were family because my brothers kept saying like that's our cousin, and he looked like us.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh,
okay,
that's Ross.
Okay. And so how did it become this is gonna be my man?
Oh, girl, I think I realized that we were not related. And I was actually at a sleepover with my friends. And, you know, we were playing all of this, like.
This is still as a child or at 21?
This is at 21.
Okay, so
I'm at a sleepover with my girlfriends. Yeah. We were at my apartment. And my ex had moved back home. And we were, you know, we were playing all of this, like, Keisha Cole, like. Love No, the other part of Keisha Cole where she like F you, that part. And so I was like, that's when I was saying my next man, he gonna be. And then I said,
I envision you rapping, my next man, he gonna be another.
And so I told my friends, I said, matter of fact, the next man that like my Instagram post gonna be my husband. Joking.
Okay. And
so I went to go pick up my phone, and Ross had like I feel like he went and liked every last one of my pictures.
Like, I'm gonna tell her I like her.
Basically, I don't know.
Okay.
But I was like, scratch, start over. I was like, it's Ross. I'm like, he can't be my husband. We're gonna start over.
Yeah, because that's my cousin.
No, he wasn't my cousin. I knew that.
Oh, you knew it at
because he had asked me on a date when I was still with my ex-boo.
Got it. Okay.
He was trying to be my man.
Okay.
But I was like going through his pictures. I was like, dang, Ross fine. I was like, oh my God, he a firefighter? I was like, oh. And then I saw Jaden and I was like, oh my God, Jaden is 3. I wasn't thinking of Ross in this sense.
Oh, okay.
Like,
Did you know Jaden? Mm-hmm. Okay, because y'all been friends for so long. You knew he had a son and.
Yes, but I didn't realize Jaden had gotten so big.
Got you.
So I hit Ross up on Instagram and I was like, you should really bring Jaden to come see me because I didn't realize he was this old. And he was like, yeah, when you free?
Ross, you should bring Jaden. Girl, get out of here.
But seriously, you can ask my friends. I was like, we gonna start over the next man after Ross, But I was
so when he brings Jaden over, does he bring Jaden over?
No.
So what did he say back to you?
So he showed, so he said, when are you free? And I was like, you can come tomorrow. I'm in college. I have no things to do.
Okay.
So I was like, yeah, you should bring him by my apartment tomorrow. So he was like, okay, cool. And then he showed up.
Now, your brother beat you up once before for having somebody at your apartment. No, I'm just
no, in my mama's house. He was like, you got me messed up.
I'm joking. Okay, so stay focused. Ignore me.
At this point, my brothers don't care.
Yeah.
Now, this is the real.
And you just, yeah.
Okay.
So he comes to your apartment. Ignore me. Stay focused. He comes to your apartment.
So he comes to my apartment literally the very next day.
Okay.
And there's no Jaden.
Okay.
And so I was like, where's Jaden at? And he was like, oh, he's with his mom.
Okay.
He couldn't come today.
What did you have on? This is going to tell if you really was like, it's just Ross. What did you have on?
Oh, girl, it really was just Ross.
Okay.
I had on a grind shirt. My cousin Ebony that I was talking about, her husband, her then boyfriend, but now husband, has a clothing line called Grind. Okay. I had on a I had on a red Grind t-shirt and some jeans.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Let me tell you just like this was really like, it's just Ross. Mm-hmm. We went into I was like, oh, well, let me change my t-shirt because my shirt was smelling like, I don't know. But I was swapping one Grind shirt for the next.
Where was Ross?
In my room. And so I took my shirt off and put the other shirt on.
This is giving, she knew what she was doing. This was giving to me. I'm just curious. At some point, we're going to let Ross tell his story.
Okay,
Ross,
listen.
You want to tell what you experienced? Okay, we're gonna let Ross tell.
Oh my God. Okay,
anyway, so you do this whole thing where you take your.
Well, no. That's how. It wasn't even like that. I was literally I grabbed another shirt. I was like, let me change my shirt real quick, and then I, doop.
So then, what y'all doing? Y'all going on a date? Y'all hanging around the house?
I was like, well, you still want to go get cheesecake? Mm-hmm. Well, I didn't ask him that. He asked me that actually. Mm-hmm. He was like, you still want to go get? I was like, yeah, let's go get some cheesecake. We got cheesecake. It was so fun.
Yay.
The conversation was really good. I was like, oh, this is cool. Because this was honestly our first time getting to know the adult version of each other. Okay. So we left there where we now have that LSU water campus situation. Mm-hmm. They used to be like this abandoned pier.
Okay.
We left, went to this pier. He was like, I want to show you something real cool. And so he took me to this pier. It had like graffiti all over the place. And it literally, you could die out there. It was not, but it was cool.
It was so romantic before you said
it was not romantic at all, but it was really dope.
Cool, yeah.
And so he knows that, I think we both kind of knew that like we liked art and all that.
Stuff.
Different stuff. And so we still were not ready to leave each other. So I was like, let's go to the strip club. And then
You ever hear a story and you thinking you know where it's going? Every time you say the next thing, it takes me to so we went to this pier. We could have died. Oh, I didn't expect it. And then y'all go to in Baton Rouge. Y'all went to the strip club.
Oh yeah.
I didn't even know they had strip clubs here. Okay, so
they had way more strip clubs.
Okay, so y'all go to the strip club and now what?
we just had a drink, a beer.
Okay.
We both had Dos Equis.
Okay.
And we were talking, and Ross was like, yeah, you know, I come to the strip club all the time. Just. And I was like, oh, that's right. You know, I'm just, because I'm like, it's cool. You know, we ain't no girls dancing on
So curate, the concept of curate. You know, the asterisk. Or, no, I'm just kidding. So y'all at the strip club, y'all have to leave. So once we leave the strip club,
then we just come back to my apartment.
Okay.
And he spent the night.
Oh, such a gentleman.
Right. Right. So he woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm just kidding.
Girl, wait. Okay, so let's jump past the first date. Because you know I ask 100,000 questions and I'm trying to remember that we're being filmed. Okay. So then, you know, the first day happened. And then I've experienced something similar with Jay, actually. And it's one of those things where it's like, oh my God, like I wasn't even expecting this. This is something different.
Yes.
So you thought that the next day? I'm asking. What did you think the next day?
I literally thought that night. I was like, do I like Ross? Like that's.
Okay, so that's what you're saying in the moment. Like once he's gone and you're processing the date.
He never left me.
Oh, so let me run home and get my clothes.
I lied. He actually got up. He left my apartment at like 4 o'clock that morning because he had to be to work at 6.
Okay. So you are processing now at 6.
So yeah, I'm like, oh my God, do I like Ross? And I was like, I think I like him. But I'm also, you know, raised with 4 dudes, so I shall not tell him that I like him. And I'm also never going to make the first move. I'm not going to be the first person to call you when you leave. So Ross gets to the fire station and he's like, what you doing? You should come hang with me. And I'm like, all right, cool. And then I went.
This was the same day? The next day? So y'all just been attached since
We've literally been together every day since the day that he came to my
So
apartment.
it didn't even allow you to be able to say like, I'm not dating a dude with a kid. Because you didn't even make the decision.
Because before I even knew it, I was dating a dude with a kid. Which
that's deep.
Yeah.
It's deep because part of what it reminds you of is like you really don't control this journey in the way that you expect you do.
No.
Like destiny will bring you where you're supposed to be and you look up and you're like, how did I get here? Because had you left it up to your own mind, I
wouldn't have even given him a chance.
You wouldn't even given him a chance.
Well, because so there was this guy that was like, you know, he had took me on a date. But I told him, I was like, you are so cool, but you got a kid. And I was serious about that. And then it wasn't the fact that he had a kid too. His kid was like barely a year old.
So it's
and I'm like, I don't want to deal with your
stuff
I don't
too.
want to deal with your baby mama. I just, you know, whatever. But I would still I was still having to get to know him. Ross snuck up on me.
I love it. I love it.
Up on me.
I love that.
I didn't walk into that with it. Neither one of us did. We did not have expectations.
Yeah.
But even our first date, we didn't consider that as a date until like, you know,
so did y'all do a first date?
No.
Like one show.
Technically that was our
So
first
basically
date.
y'all didn't consider it, but y'all said we're gonna let that be the first. We're not gonna go on an official date.
No. Because we always dating.
Yeah.
We did so many of those. We still do so many of those.
That. I know y'all do. So then you're a stepmom now.
Yes.
Well, y'all aren't married yet. Y'all, how long did it take from that moment to when y'all actually got married?
3 years.
Oh, okay.
2 years. 3 years.
But did you consider yourself, because you said I became a stepmom at 21. So once y'all got serious, you automatically put yourself mentally in like,
because when he came, stepmom. Because when I first started hanging around, and even though it was like, okay, I'm dating this guy, I need to start treating this kid like he's my stepkid, because I was treating Jaden like he was my nephew. You know, he was my friend's son until we started taking each other serious, like dating, and also to the point of me not dating a guy with a kid. Ross being a dad was like almost the top thing that made me more attracted to him.
You know, wait, pause. No, I'm saying because I feel like a lot of women in their 20s have their idea of what the perfect man is. And we will cross him off the list because he doesn't fit that list.
Yes.
But what you just described was you had this hard, fast, your only thing on your list was no child.
Yes.
But then you said that who he was as a dad was the thing that really made you the most attracted to him. That's important to point out.
Yeah.
Because we can create our list all we want to, and we really could be missing out on something or not giving somebody an opportunity.
Yeah.
You know.
Because Jaden has a phenomenal mom. He does. The way that she parents him is really good. But her relationship with Ross, it wasn't good. Ross's relationship with Jaden's mom, it was not good. And so to see the way that he fought to have his kid in his life, to see the way that, you know, whenever he spent time with Jaden, that time was really about Jaden. And everything that he did it in consideration of what Jaden needed. And, you know, I was just like,
wow.
And he was young. He wasn't an old daddy. He was, you know, Ross only 2 years older than me.
Oh, wow.
And so the way that I think that he made decisions, and the way that, you know, girl, come on, because this ain't no.
Right, yeah.
But I'm just, you know, I think all of the ways that he is very considerate of people is like amplified when you think about when he is making decisions for his kids.
I love that. Okay, so y'all had a big wedding or small wedding?
Very shotgun.
Was it because you have never had you always describe yourself kind of like a tomboy. And so like you never had you weren't playing with baby dolls, like walking down the aisle and like the vision of marriage. Did you have a vision of what you wanted your marriage to look like? Okay. Or your wedding and your marriage?
So I grew up Catholic and Baptist. I always thought that if I got married, I would be married in the Catholic church. I thought cathedrals were so pretty. But also to that point, I never wanted to be married. So no, I never planned a wedding. I never thought of myself as a wife.
So when did any part of you, when he asked you to marry him, question if you really wanted to do it? Because you said you never thought you wanted to be married.
So I never wanted to be married. When Ross asked me to marry him, I still was not ready. But I said yes because you
didn't want to lose him.
Yeah, we're not going to be together. That's not going to happen.
Why didn't you want to be married?
Because I had a couple of reasons. I've never seen a good example of marriage. Also, at that time in my life, I don't really know if I liked myself enough. And so I couldn't believe that somebody could love me the way that he loved me.
You didn't know that at the time, though. You didn't understand that that's why you were...
I knew that. I didn't understand that at the time.
You knew that you did not quite love yourself? Or like yourself? Well, how did you describe it? I didn't quite like myself at the time?
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah, that's very...
Probably not. I think, though, that I didn't believe that he really loved me like that.
You were afraid.
When he asked me to marry him, I literally was like, you for real?
Wow.
I didn't ask him that during the proposal, but when we went home, I was like, you really want to marry me?
Because now you're 23?
Yep.
Are you still trying to figure out who you are? What were you doing? What was your job? Were you out of college at the time, or you still was
out of college?
Okay. What was your job? Where were you working?
Probably retail.
Okay, retail. And so
what was I doing when we got married? Child has so many jobs.
But so basically you not in a career.
No.
You still got your apartment.
Yeah.
You date and you like, I don't even know where I'm going right now. Were you working towards something in your life, or were you just kind of floating at this point?
Yeah, really floating.
Floating.
Really floating and just not intentional about a whole lot.
Oh, I was gonna say the same word.
Yeah, I just was doing.
Yeah.
And so I did not think that, I really was like, what does he like in me? I'm like, what does Ross see in me that, you know, clearly most of it, I just couldn't see it for myself. So anyways, he proposed in October. In November, I entertained the idea of planning a wedding. The reason why I say entertain, because I knew I wasn't serious. I went with my mom. We went to him and Bow. We planned this whole wedding. The wedding was like $70,000.
Oh, that's how much you said you barely had a wedding.
Oh, girl, we didn't have that wedding.
Oh, I was like,
because I literally called him and I was like, oh my God, I can't figure out who I want to be bridesmaids, groomsmen.
Like this is ridiculous.
And I thought that we would be the couple to be engaged for years.
Okay.
So I was like, oh, okay, you know, we got time.
Yeah.
Ross then said, oh, well, I'm off. He said,
I like it.
He said, I'm off this weekend.
I'm available on Saturday.
Exactly.
Let's do it.
And so, you know, I was thinking, oh, that actually is a good weekend. It was like Thanksgiving weekend. We actually got married on Black Friday.
How long after you decided, oh, we're going to have time, was the wedding?
Girl, we got married a month later. He proposed in October. In November, we were married. And I still was like, you really wanted to marry me? For real.
So you were y'all living together?
No.
So you move in with him after y'all get married?
Yes.
And
now we did spend every day
right,
together,
but y'all, it's still different when you like
officially living together.
Y'all are living together. So now this is like the real deal. You're a wife, you're a stepmom, you still kind of floating career-wise. Still
have not graduated from college.
I thought you said you did. You
No,
hadn't graduated yet. Okay.
I didn't graduate until after Rossi.
Girl.
Because I had given up.
You ain't got enough for that. With the,
I was like, I'm sick of Southern, basically.
Okay.
And so I just was like, I'll find something else to do with my life.
So you're 24-ish? Mm-hmm. Okay. When do you think you got your first job, like your job, for real job? I shouldn't say it like that. Because I remember at some point you worked for like the DA's office or something.
So yeah, that was like a year after I graduated from college.
Were you a nail tech before that?
Yes.
Okay, so then you become a nail tech, which is how a bunch of people in Baton Rouge know you.
Yes.
Okay, so you figure out, I like to do nails, I'm gonna go be a nail tech.
Yes. Okay, so I was working a retail job. I love this job. I love this place, Broad Genie. It's amazing.
Okay.
Okay, so I was working for Broad Genie. But I also had a nail obsession. I would do my nails every single day. Every time a client would come in the store, I would be like, oh, that's Bubble Bath, or oh, that's Lincoln Park After Dark. Like, I could tell them their nail color. They're like, oh my gosh, that's what color it is. And so my baby daddy, being true to who he is, I said, can I quit this job and go to nail school? Because that was also crazy, because even though this is a retail job, they didn't pay like retail jobs pay. It was a pretty good paying job.
Okay.
So, but he was like, yes, please pursue something
that you love.
Right. And stick with it. And so I was like, all right. So I quit that job, started going to nail school, found one of Ross's fire captains actually introduced me to this girl who owns a day spa here called Skin Fanatics Day Spa. And I came in and she was like, oh, I hire you on the spot. And she did. And so while I was going to school, she was like, but you do have to go to school and graduate. So I worked there, went to school in New Orleans, and finished nail school, thought I was going to open a nail salon. Actually started doing nails out of my house for a while.
So this is 25-ish, 24, 25. How long did you do nails?
26.
26, okay.
I did nails for a long time, like some years, maybe like 4 or 5 years.
And you still don't have any kids yet?
I got pregnant with Rossi while I was working at the spa.
Got it. Okay. So let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay. So you've gone to school for something you love. You are pursuing this nail. You're being a nail tech, dreaming of like, I'm gonna have my own nail spa. Like now you starting to vision like what your life could really look like. Okay.
Yes.
So then you get pregnant. Were y'all trying to get pregnant? Or was like, we're married, we're not trying not to get pregnant?
I think we have both realized that, like, man, we've been together for a long time and I haven't been pregnant. Like, I wonder what that's about. And then I started experiencing like this pain in my stomach where I realized that I had what they call endometriitis. And so as I was there, I had an appointment scheduled to go clear out whatever that infection was, and I found out I was pregnant.
Okay. All right. Okay.
But it's crazy because even after we were together, I was like, I still didn't want to be a mom.
That's what I was going to say, because you didn't want to be a wife. So I was wondering if you...
Most certainly did not want to be a mom.
Oh, got you. That's what I was curious about.
That's what I was most afraid of.
So you find out you're pregnant, and are you like...
Child, if you get married and you mess that up, you can walk away from that.
Yeah.
You have kids, you mess that up, it's a wrap.
You're just going to be a horrible parent.
You're about to be a horrible parent for the rest of your life.
So did you get excited, worried, afraid, all of the above? How did you feel when you found out?
When I thought that I couldn't have kids, then that made me want to be a mom. It's crazy how that is.
And so then you thought that right before you had to go to the appointment to figure out how to fix things. And then you find out you're pregnant. So you're like, oh my God, I'm pregnant.
And then I was excited.
You were excited.
And also scared.
Okay. So now Rossi, what is Rossi's official condition? I don't want to say the wrong thing because I don't understand how to.
Yeah. So Rossi has optic nerve hypoplasia.
Okay.
He has diabetes insipidus.
Okay.
And he has hypothyroidism.
Okay.
And he has cerebral palsy.
Oh, good. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Now, you are now pregnant.
Yes.
At what point do you learn all of this?
Oh, Rossi was 3 months.
So he was born.
He was born.
Okay.
But I was watching this show and I thought, like, I was watching this show about this deaf girl, about this little girl who went deaf because she had meningitis. And I just kept thinking, like, my baby's going to be born. Something's not right. But not in a way that's like, I don't feel like I was projecting anything.
Right,
I just felt like God was really preparing me that my baby was different. And so day one, Rossi was born, I asked the nurse, I'm like, is my child blind? Can he see? And she was like, it's too soon to tell.
Why did you ask that?
Because he couldn't get control of his eyes. They call it nystagmus. He had nystagmus really, really bad. His eyes were like, and
as a newborn 1 day old baby, you could see that. Okay. And so you asked that and she was like, we don't know that yet.
Yes. She was like, it's too soon to tell.
Were you feeling, so you said you asked that, you said you knew something told you he was going to be different. Did you feel afraid or just prepared? Like, do you remember what you felt when that was kind of revealed to you, or did you not even process it yet?
Even now, like, I could be somebody can do something very messed up to me and I can't process that in the moment, not while I'm dealing with it.
Gotcha.
So while I was dealing with it, I wasn't processing anything at all. I was just like, this is happening and, somebody just got to tell me something because otherwise I'm just going to keep, But he also had an episode the night he was born that I thought was a seizure, where his eyes, he couldn't get control of his eyes, but he couldn't regulate his own temperature. His temperature kept dropping to a very low temperature. So he had to spend a couple of weeks in the NICU.
So here's what I remember about having a baby. The day after my baby's born, I'm in the hospital room. And the stuff, what's that yellow stuff when you have breast milk? It's something, start with an M, I can't remember it. Whatever it is. Yeah. Not whatever it is, but it's like liquid gold, basically. Yeah. And I remember some kind of way I knocked the little thing over and some of it spilled and I literally sobbed, had a whole breakdown because your hormones are all over the place. And I was like, well, my baby has to eat. This is, so what I'm trying to bring my mind to is you're in the hospital room, your baby is a day old or whatever. You are like, something seems different with how his eyes are. He has this episode. How are you? And you're saying that based on how you operate in the moment of that kind of stuff, you don't process it. So what do you feel? Just like you become a robot?
I think in the moment, I just kept thinking, oh my gosh, I'm a mom. Like,
girl, you over here still saying like, I just had a baby.
Like, for real. And I'm like, and what is happening? And I just kept, and then, but we're still in the hospital. So
you're not worried because they going to take care of whatever's.
Not that I'm not worried. I just am like, I'm not a zombie. I'm aware of what's happening. I'm just not processing it in the way that most people would be processing it, right? I'm just like, okay, I'm just thinking about, okay, what's the next step? Okay, then we get through this, then like now what? How long does he have to be in the hospital? Everything is like a next step for me. And then, cause I'm thinking, okay, well, if we make it to the next step, then I can figure out what's happening. Well, it just kept being next step after next step after next step after next. Wow. Like he would leave the hospital. The very first night we had him home, he was back in the emergency room.
Oh, wow. Some people say, like me and my friends sometimes talk about how our husbands struggle with, and I'm not saying anybody's specific husband, including my own. I'm just saying how husbands, sometimes we don't have room as mothers to sit in how we feel because our husbands sometimes struggle with the weight of what's happening. And so somebody has to be present, right? Like, so like, let's say my child, something's going on and I want to just be like, but I can't because my husband over there doing that. So I'm like, well, now somebody got to pay attention and you hush because I can't hear. So I'm asking this to say, as y'all are going through this and you are like, what's next? Help me understand. You're not processing. You just kind of like moving through it. What's Ross doing? Is he one of the ones that's screaming? Because part of it is with his job as a firefighter. I'm sure he has seen and experienced so much. So I'm just curious to know like how he processes an emergent, like in this moment.
I can't really remember. What I do know now is that any stressful situation for me, I can't let Ross know that I'm stressed out because he's gonna make me even more stressed out.
Okay.
So I can't remember. I do remember that when Rossi was little, I never had to do any of that alone.
Mm-hmm.
Everything, like I asked my mother-in-law before Rossi was born, because see, this is also me prepping myself that someone was not gonna be normal with my kid. I had asked my mother-in-law if we could move in with her for a few months after I had Rossi. And she said yes. And so we came home from the hospital and we stayed with my mother-in-law. And so my brother-in-law, we call him Little Charles, and Sonia, they were living with my mom, my mother-in-law at the time. So it was like always hands on deck, and it still was hard. Ross and I were taking shifts with Rossi because Rossi only slept 45-minute increments forever. It seemed like for years. And so Ross and I would take turns, like I would sleep, he would have Rossi, he would sleep. But then when we both needed rest, my mother-in-law would help, Charles and Sonia, they would help. And that was happening for a good like 3 months.
Did you go back to work soon, or like at what point did you go? Because being a nail tech, is that the right term? You could set your own schedule, right?
Yeah.
So were you working like how long after he was born did you go back to work?
Probably 3 months.
So 3 months. So then,
because I moved back into, it was like right before we moved back into our house that I went back to work. But
at what point do you feel like because when did you finally say, or have you ever said, you named 4 things that I probably can't pronounce or remember, like this is a lot. This is a lot. Like I am having to parent a child who is hard enough.
Yeah.
But this is a lot.
Yeah.
When did you ever say that? He's not sleeping. Y'all are like needing now y'all go home.
Somebody else actually mentioned it to me like, dang, that's a lot. And then I broke down like, it is a lot. You know, that's a lot. That's but to be honest, if I had ever sat in how much we were going through, I probably would not have been a competent mom to Rossi.
That's where God comes in.
Yes.
It's as I remember a Mother's Day or something, because I was a single mother for a while with Marley, and I was in Atlanta by myself, no family there. And I remember like years after me and Jay were together, I sat there and I wept for my old self, because I didn't even really realize. I remember certain things, like I was telling somebody having to be at like a family Thanksgiving breakfast with your kid in daycare. You know how the daycares be having, and like she was like 1 barely maybe, and then I'm sitting there with no family, it's just the 2 of us, and I'm like, I can't talk to you, this is very awkward, I don't know half these people. Just the loneliness of it, like trying to go out to dinner and it's just me and a baby, like, hey, so gaga. So my point is I recognize how sometimes when things are too hard, God won't even allow your brain to go there, because you wouldn't be able to function in it. Even now when I plan Curate, when I walked into the space, like we were setting everything up, and I just kept thinking like, at what point am I not going to be a part of this setup crew? Because it was too much. I literally walked into the room where I was having my hair and makeup done, and I broke down, and I didn't even realize that that it was so much. And so then I walked back out into like, my hair and my makeup is done, Sabrina had prayed over us in the room, and then I walk into the space where everything was, and I literally was thinking like, what?
How did
this happen?
How did I do all of this by myself and not have a nervous breakdown? But just like parenting, just like everything that God has called me to do, He always provides the capacity. He always provides the mental fortitude for me to see the thing through, because it's never about me. When I walked into Curate, I fully understood that this conference, this entire entity, none of it is about me.
So part of what I'm going to do is, because I could ask you and talk, because I remember when you said you were pregnant with Cece, after Cece was born, I think you experienced some postpartum. Did you experience some postpartum depression? Almost. But I remember like it was a hard kind of time for you. I don't want to hijack your next fireside chat because I'm sure people, but what has been interesting to me is like understanding the different phases of your life, right? And then so you were the nail tech for a while, then you worked at the DA's office for a minute.
That was after Rossi. We needed real money.
After you needed some money, baby. Okay. So when did you have the vision for Curate?
So Rossi, I was probably on the other side of the postpartum depression before I realized that I had experienced depression. And then that's
why did you say, because you said almost. We don't have to go into it. When I say you experienced some postpartum depression and you said almost, but then you just said like I was on the other side of it. So you did experience some level of depression.
With Rossi.
Oh, with Rossi. Okay.
With Rossi, okay.
That's right, because you were afraid when you got pregnant with Cece, because you were afraid that
when I think about how bad the depression was with Rossi, I hardly remember his early baby years. I hardly remember him. I just remember how hard it was with him. But I can't remember my thoughts or my feelings and it's because I really did kind of just like block myself. I couldn't focus on me because I think if I did, like I said, I wouldn't have the competency to be his mom. But when I had Cece, I was in a much healthier place mentally. You know, we were in another home. You know, we had purchased our first home. Ross and I were in a better place with each other. Like our relationship had really evolved. And so when I found myself going through, because then I could feel it with Cece, I could feel me going into a state of depression.
Did you know you had depression with Rossi as a baby before you had Cece? Like, because sometimes you gotta be in something and say, "Oh, I did not experience it. I was depressed."
Yeah. I had started to really grab the reins with Rossi, and I had really started to enjoy my baby, and I enjoyed being a mom. That's when it felt good to be a mom, despite all the things that Rossi had going on. When Rossi was first born, I didn't feel like a mom. I felt like I'm just trying to keep. I feel like I was just trying to keep my baby alive, you know, because Rossi was my fear of being a mom for so many reasons. I'm like, girl, I was so irresponsible myself, let alone, you know, having to grow up in a totally different way with him. It was just like, get it together. That's what I kept telling myself. So like, I can't feel my feelings. You just got to get it together. You can't. If you fold, so is Rossi. If you fold, so will your marriage. If you fold, every single thing else is going to crumble. So just get it together. I didn't even have time to think about those thoughts that I just said. I just knew, keep it together. That's it.
You know what's interesting to me? I always look at like your brain, your thoughts, and your body, your emotions, your heart. Because part of what you are describing is your body never lies to itself.
Yes.
Your brain can do things and detach from your body, but your body is sitting there taking it all in, which is why I feel like people can have a nervous breakdown. Because at some point your body is going to force your brain to do what it has. So when we first talked, you were talking about, I was just going through the motion. I knew I needed it. You were describing your experience from your brain.
Yeah.
When you just described being depressed, not being you described what you experienced from your heart, right? And at some point it finally merged, and then you could connect what you were really feeling, because it's sometimes like I will read something, hear something, see something that will really mess with me.
Yeah.
And then like 2 hours later, I'm sitting there and I'm like, why am I feeling like this?
Yeah.
And I have to back into like, what did I see or hear? Because your body won't lie to itself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that was really, you described that in a way that I could perfectly understand what you were saying.
Yeah. So by the time I was pregnant with Cece, I was very happy about this pregnancy, even though it caught me off guard because I think we were supposed to go to Bali, and I just kept saying, don't get pregnant before you know the body.
Because you want to control everything.
Pregnant,
right,
and then I couldn't
control.
go.
Right.
You know, it was just crazy. But I was still extremely happy. And then I just kept thinking like, oh, this would be really cool if I had a girl. And so anyways, after I had Cece, I was going through this like, not myself, just feeling like, what are you doing with your life? Like, okay, now you're on your second kid and you ain't, you know, what's happening? And so I remember when I was pregnant with Cece, we went with two of our friends, Rain and Shireen, to San Antonio, where we thought we were going to be working together. So we went and had this work retreat in San Antonio. We went to this church, and these pastors who did not know me prophesied over me and basically regurgitated the conversation that Ross and I just kept having over and over and over again, where he kept saying, you know, all the stuff that you do for other people, you should really do that for yourself. You should really put yourself out there. And I could totally see you doing da-da-da-da-da. You know, my nail salon, the nail brand that I was building was supposed to look like Curate. We were gonna record our conversations as I was doing these women, like as I was doing their nails. And I was like, but it doesn't have to be that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have to be in the, like, I want to do what I do behind the scenes. All right. And so anyways, just speaking to like the reason why I couldn't do it is because I was insecure, thinking nobody knows me. Nobody wants to listen to you. What do you have to offer to these women? That's why I would write things on behalf of other people and let them say, you know. So anyways, they prophesied these things. Months later, had Cece come home in the middle of the night, and I am having a moment. And so then I pray to God, and I say, because I was looking at my baby, and I'm like, what legacy am I going to leave you? Or what am I going to do that's going to make her proud to say that I am her mom? And what's going to separate me as her mom than other moms out there raising daughters? You know, it's way different when you have a daughter. And so that really sent me into a place of like, that was like the real get it together. Get it together in a way that's like, you can no longer blame how you grew up. You can't say that you had never seen it done. You really got to step into whatever this power is that God said that you had. You got to figure it out. And so I prayed and I said, God, show me who this woman is, because I don't believe that she exists. Everybody keeps selling me, you know, oh, you should do this, you should do, especially Ross. And I'm like, what do you see? I've always thought that since the first day that we were married. I'm like, what, why, you know? But even the pastor said that in the prophecy, that, you know, you married this man not even thinking that you weren't even good enough for him. And they were like, you have to get out of, you know, that whole whatever. And so God gave me a dream, and it was literally Curate. And it was the very first conference. And I wrote this dream down, and I literally woke up like, Ross, get up so I could tell you this dream.
What year was this? Do you remember?
2020.
Okay.
2021.
Okay.
And so I wrote the dream down, and I waited for Ross to wake up, and I told him, and he said, all right,
let's do it.
You're going to do it. Not let's do it. Like, you're going to do it. And I was like, all right, I'm going to call, you know, and I just started saying, like, I'm going to get Rain and Shireen. They're going to plan it with me. And then I'm going to get Ellen, and she's going to host it. And then I'm going to reach out to Savitra, because Savitra was in my dream. All these women were in my dream.
Wow.
And I don't know these, you know them, but not really. But so I was just like, except Ellen, we were, you know, and so anyways, I was like, I'm going to do it. Every last person that I listed were on board. But they were like, all right, but you got to do it.
Because you were thinking you were going to be behind the scenes, just orchestrating a conference that you weren't going to have any business.
So that I had printed the itinerary, and I still had not put myself on the program. And Ellen was like, quit playing with me. If you don't put yourself on this program, I'm not doing it. And I'm not even going to show up. You are going to have to do it.
So did you look, because you talked about how people can inspire you and then you have to feel empowered. Was there somebody, as you started to like, now the vision is clear, that you looked to, or something that you looked to for inspiration in terms of like, or was the vision literally that clear That you didn't even have to like seek inspiration from anywhere else.
The vision was that clear. So much so that when I went into like this, I just planned this as an event. This was going to be a women in marketing event. And I was going to invite women of all backgrounds because the women that I was going to bring in to teach, everybody can benefit from learning from them. And so I had no blueprint of what this looked like other than what had shown up in my dream. And so when I had actually done the branding for Curate, when I was explaining what this was and how I wanted to separate these conferences and how I wanted them to be both experiential, like I wanted to be beautiful, but also impactful. Not one without the other. I don't want a boring conference.
That's gorgeous.
That's gorgeous. And I also don't want a gorgeous conference that was not impactful. And so the girls who were doing my branding stuff, they were just like, oh, that sounds like da-da-da-da-da. It sounds like da-da-da-da-da. And then I went to go look up these brands, and I'm like, there's no way. There's no way.
This is not da-da-da-da. This is not da-da-da-da.
But it was very similar in a way that I'm
okay.
like, oh my gosh, people gonna think that I copied their stuff.
Okay.
Like, but Ross said to me, he's like, no, Victoria, that's the blueprint. Be glad that that's there, because now you do have something to inspire you. Now you do have something to pull some sort of inspiration from if you need it, but even that's not impactful in the way that what you're trying to do.
So how has your vision, that was the physical vision of your conference. So I just attended the conference last year. That was your second conference, which was probably, I go to a lot of different things, was probably the best thing I did the whole year in terms of just like taking so many nuggets. It was phenomenal. So that was your vision for Curate, the conference. In line with that, you've done these fireside chats or these interviews that like tie those two things. Was it just, tie those two things together, how you decided to start doing the interviews?
So I took the same platform that I built for the conference, which was started with the fireside chat, and then it was the interactive learning, that was the workshop, and then it ended with inspiration.
Gotcha.
The fireside chat allowed people to get to know that keynote in a very specific way that they otherwise wouldn't know her if she was just speaking to the audience. And so then I thought, there's so many more people that I'm inspired by that, like, I would love to know their stories, like, and I wonder if they would tell it to me. And then so Ross kind of partnered like this whole, like, well, then we should do this ongoing series where we record these conversations. You have these conversations with these women, because he was like, you have this gift of pulling things out of people that, you know, that they otherwise just would not talk about. And so I was like, well, that's good, because then it gives me a chance to explore like what they do for a living, but also who you are that got you to this point, and then what keeps you going, what keeps you motivated. Then we talk about your love life, and then we talk about like all kind of stuff. We have girl talk,
Right.
That allows, you know, your audience to learn you also in that way that they wouldn't otherwise know you, but still in a way that they could still appreciate you.
How do you think the vision for what you first saw has evolved to where you are today with the Curate vision? Or is it the same?
It has definitely evolved. It has definitely given me a confidence in knowing that, like, you could trust yourself because you trust God, and you know that, like, I know that these things, these ideas, they don't come from me. And I'm not even saying this in like a whatever kind of way. Like, I know that I'm not that bright to just like have these thoughts myself, but I pray often, like every single day. I start my day in prayer, in devotion, and I read my Bible, and I try to really reconcile with God. Like, what is it that, because I don't want to spend my life here floating.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want my daughter to think that that's okay either. I don't want her to think that, oh, you meet a man, you marry this man, and he's pretty much, he could just take care of you. I don't want that for her. And I did not want that for me either.
You know what's so powerful? Like the goal, like you said, is for all of us to become completely unconfused. And as you've talked about your life, your experiences, you talked about insecurities, being kind of lost, right? Like having things that you felt like you needed and wanted that you didn't get, or setting goals for yourself that you like, or hard boundaries, like no kids, no this, no wedding. And like you've gone through life and kind of gotten here, right? Yeah. And so what's powerful is how God, you are describing Curate in terms of what God's vision is for you to bring women to a specific place. Yeah. What I am hearing is God's vision for Curate really also was to bring you to a specific place, right? Where you are completely unconfused. Like one of the things I thought we were there. I was like, oh my God, like she finally like gets who she is. Like you can sing, you can draw, you can paint, you can do all of these things. Like you really could have gone anywhere with this stuff. But part of what you said was, I know I'm not bright enough to come up with this. So I was like, whatever, she ain't quite there yet. Because I think that what I feel like part of Curate really is, it's not just about us being completely confused, but also unconfused. Being completely confused, walking out of Curate like, what? No. About us being completely unconfused, but also where God is like, no, you're special. Yeah. And like, I'm going to give you a vision that only you really could execute on. Yes. Because I really also need you to understand what I have for you. Like he wouldn't have just chosen anybody, right? Yeah. And so some of it is like, you need to own that differently. Not like, I'm not bright enough to come. Look, girl, listen, if you didn't think you were bright enough, he wouldn't even given it to you. He would have given it to me.
Right. So that's why I was like, I'm not trying to say this in like an airhead fashion.
Right. It's the vision is so big.
That you know. Yeah. That like, you know, even what's so crazy is I did Curate year 1. It gave me the confidence, you know, keep going and do Curate year 2. But even as I'm planning year 3 conference, there's still these little stupid gremlins in my brain that's like, can you do it? I don't really think you could do it, you know? But God just keeps reminding me that like, girl, I have already shown you the promised land. I have already shown you that I can do it. Can you stop thinking about yourself so, you know, can you stop being so arrogant and thinking that this is about you? So this is also one of those things where I'm just like, I have to keep in mind that the vision that God gave me for Curate, it is really not about me.
I love that.
It's not about me. And that's why, you know, when I get to a point where I'm like, I want to take a break, you know, that's the arrogance in me, thinking that I have that type of control over Curate. I think Curate is bigger than a brand. It's certainly bigger than me. It certainly meets the needs of, I hear you say, like, I heard you say that this was like one of the best things that you had ever been to, but there are so many women who share that same sentiment. And I just keep thinking, like, God, you are so kind to let me be the person to be the face of that, right? To be the person to even lead people to that, because I've made so many reckless decisions in my life. I have doubted myself so much that I didn't think that God would download something like that on the inside of me. But one thing that I am completely unconfused about is not necessarily what Curate is going to look like for years and years and years and years to come, but that God is going to always provide a platform for me to be able to provide the things that his girls need.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. Okay. So if you had to, this is kind of me. First of all, let me say this to the camera. Listen, I don't do this for a living. I told y'all I develop housing.
But you're doing
so
such a good job.
So if y'all want to troll somebody because y'all don't like this interview, baby, listen, I'm not even going to read it. So don't troll me, okay? I'm just going to be clear. Because this is just me talking to my girl. Okay. And I love you so much. And I'm glad you trusted me to have this conversation with you. And so I'm just kind of lastly, like the whole unconfused part. To me, I wanted to explore the journey to Curate. I think part of it is I've met people that have known you in all different capacities. And so I think that sometimes, again, people won't allow God to like expose them to things because they got a wall up about like what they think is right and wrong.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I don't want to have a man that has a baby. But then, you know, part of what you loved the most about him was how he was as a father.
Yeah.
So I feel like part of what was important to me was that people could watch this and be able to experience the blessing of Curate without looking at you and not being able to let go of who they think you are, but also understanding you in a different way, right? Like, just because I do your nails, baby, that's, I'm sorry. Like, what's the problem with this? But also, like, I'm so much bigger than, that's why I don't tell people I do real estate development. I'm so much bigger than just my job, right?
Yes.
And so I read a quote that talked about your job is I'm gonna mess it up, but it was something like your job is the vehicle that you get to use to show love.
Yes.
So no matter what your job is, it's the vehicle and tool you were given to be able to express love in this world.
Yes.
So as people watch this, and is there anything you want to leave them with in terms of being unconfused about who you are?
Ooh. First, I want to say something about, you know, people who met me as a nail tech, and that's how they knew me. People who met me before I was a nail tech, people who knew me in college. Part of the prophecy that was given to me was when you step into who God has called you to be, how they saw you, how they see you won't be how they saw you. And the more that I fully step into who God has called me to be, I can see the shift happening with people. And I don't want people to have a reverence for me. That is literally for God. But I think in order for me to take this promise into something that could be a fulfillment in other women's lives, there does have to be a level of respect that comes with, I work hard to put this together. I am obedient to what God has called me to, and this is not a mission of Victoria. But in order for you to respect what God has for you, then you have to respect the person that God has put into that place. So I'm not even upset about the people who can't see me beyond how they saw me, because eventually they will get there or they won't, because it, you know, that ain't got nothing to do with me. I hate that for you though, because I'm pretty dope outside of being a nail tech.
And you are. Thank you very much.
But for other people, fear is a huge, stupid wall that will literally keep us from getting to the next step in our lives. And I think that if we could just get past what we're afraid of, if we could just get past our own insecurities and allow ourselves to see ourselves the way that God sees us, then we can really fulfill, you know, I talk about this all the time, we can really fulfill these promises that he has for us. We don't have to. I mean, if you read your word, you know, Moses didn't take it all the way there. You know, Joshua had to come in and really seal that deal for us. But I think that if we can let go of the fear and the insecurities and the lies that we've told ourselves, if we could get past the mistakes that we've made, if we could get past thinking that we're not good enough, then you could do exactly what God has called you to do.
Yeah, it goes back to ego like we talked about, right? Letting that go.
Yes.
And being in alignment with what his vision is. So thank you
How
so
many
much.
of y'all want to see Wendy on the next episode?
No. It doesn't matter.
It's okay. We're going to have Wendy back so we can tell Wendy's story on the Curate Women Network, because I think that you got so much in you too. But close us out, Wendy.
Okay, I didn't watch that part of like previous videos, so I don't know how to close it. Thank you so much for watching the Curate episode with none other than Victoria Armstrong. I hope you will leave this completely unconfused. Thank you. Bye. Was that good?
That was good.
Okay, I love you.
Okay. Oh, okay, I love you.